I have stopped talking about Ethan Klein and his discourse around Israel Palestine because it feels like it broke people's brains. I have absolutely no problem with any sort of criticism regarding his discourse around the issue, his tone around the issue, whatever it may be. But anytime I try to engage with somebody on the topic, they do not engage with the facts of what he said or what he believes. And they go off into like weird conspiracy theories about Ela's past and Ethan's past and like make stuff up. And like, I can't get them to even like acknowledge facts or anything like that. There's just no productive discourse around the situation online or anything like that. So it was just exhausting to try to talk to people about it. And with this most recent comments that he made regarding Aaron Bushnell, it's kind of back to where it was. I made a video about it the other day and basically saying like you should be able to offer criticism, valid criticism, without jumping to like extreme rhetoric and dehumanizing people. One person recommended this video here from North Star Radio as a good, coherent, and articulate criticism of Ethan Klein's discourse around the situation, and I screened it just a little bit. It did look pretty good from what I could tell. I didn't watch the whole thing. There's more to this video. Again, it's North Star Radio. Go watch the original video. Go check it out. Give him a like. There's other parts here about some other celebrities and then Casey Neistat, but we're going to just watch the Ethan Klein part here.
Both in Gaza and in the West Bank, where Hamas is not active, yet Palestinians still have zero rights and have been killed over the past few weeks. Now, this would be the end of the video, but I'd be remiss.
So also, this is from when? Let's see, 4 months ago. So this was right around the initial time, like right after October 7th, and everything that happened around that in Ethan's discourse and the way that he addressed it. So this is not going to be covering anything new, really.
Not to at least mention the things that have been said by Ethan Klein, my all-time favorite creator on this platform. Now, there are countless people in positions of power here in America who directly impact what happens in Gaza. Whether it be Lindsey Graham calling this a holy war and calling for Israel to level the place.
We're in a religious war here. I am with Israel. Do whatever the hell you have to do to defend yourself. Level the place.
Or
Lindsey Graham is fucking psychotic and he can burn in hell in a video game.
Marco Rubio going on CNN and calling for genocide, saying they have to be eradicated.
People of Gaza. There are more than 2 million people in the Gaza Strip, and roughly 1 million of them are children.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way Israel can be expected to coexist or find some diplomatic off-ramp with these savages. I mean, these are people, as you have been reporting and others have seen, that deliberately targeted teenage girls, women, children, the elderly, not just for rape and murder, but then dumping their bodies off in the streets of Gaza where the crowds can then defile their lifeless bodies. I mean, just horrifying things, and I don't think we know the full extent of it yet. I mean, there's more to come in the days and weeks ahead. You can't coexist. They have to be eradicated.
These are...
So I do want to cover at some point the whole discourse and like the article around the grape that happened on October 7th. It seems pretty clear that it's undeniable that there were grapes that did happen, but was absolutely not as like widespread and systematic as that article made it seem, and does not seem to be like a systematic or institutional part of Hamas or their tactics, and that never really has been of any sort of like Islamic army or anything like that. But yeah, so like using that like as a talking point against not being able to find diplomacy with him is not correct.
Are truly evil people who wholeheartedly want to see the genocide of all Palestinians. These are ultimately the provocateurs of this one-sided conflict, and not the liberals online who have a slightly misinformed take on the topic. However, as someone who is a massive fan of H3, and as someone who has a large audience that's made up of H3 fans, I feel I'd be remiss not to at least discuss what Ethan has said up until this point, because it is frustrating. And it does need to be corrected. Try not to see this as me attacking Ethan by any means, because we are ultimately on the same side and we both want freedom for Palestinians. Think of this as me simply correcting the things he's said and hopefully repairing at least a little bit of the damage he may have caused by his careless words and coverage of the topic.
I appreciate that. There was so much attacking, like, again, like, if you have valid critiques of what he said, if you don't like what he said, if you don't want to follow him anymore, like, there's no problem with any of that. But like the level of energy that went into, and the level of hate that went against him was just so utterly counterproductive, so utterly, like, unhinged and dehumanizing. And like, I just don't understand how you devote that much energy to someone who is so closely aligned with, who is on the side of Palestinian liberation. Like, like, you should be able to listen to differing perspectives, even if you disagree with them, and be able to confront them and criticize them constructively.
This is Casey from the future, because I need to hedge a little bit before I start talking about this. I don't think I'm necessarily special or smart by any means. I just think I have a perspective that deserves a voice. I had a very big moment of radicalization, which was the 2020 riots here in Minneapolis. It was very difficult to wrap my head around, and I sort of had to change my perspective entirely on the world. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed with geopolitics and foreign relations and, you know, our imperialism around the globe. And as a young person, I hate to say it, about half the age of Ethan Klein, I feel as though...
What are you, 15? Isn't Ethan like 30?
While his perspective is completely valid, as an American Israeli who lived there for 5 or so years, I feel as though my perspective is just as important and deserves a voice. And that's what I'm doing here. So please just keep an open mind and listen. I still love Ethan, so keep that in mind. Thank you. Now, Ethan Klein is a Jewish American who married an Israeli woman who he met in Israel while he was on birthright. Obviously, I understand their bias, and I completely sympathize with their anger, their sadness, and overall the immense amount of emotions they've been feeling within the past couple weeks. Hila Klein, his wife, has family in Israel, all of her family for the most part, tons of friends. So for them to be scared, angry, and overall emotional in this time, I completely understand and sympathize with them. However, on the first coverage of the topic, very little context was ever mentioned.
Yeah, I feel like that put them in an especially emotionally charged stance. And I think, regardless of what you think about the points Ethan made, like, I think it would have been best if he had held off on that. Like, he was just way too emotionally charged for that conversation, I feel like.
Mentioned or brought into the picture.
So over the weekend, Hamas, who was the governing, they're a terrorist organization, but they're also control Gaza Strip. They somehow managed to put together this surprise invasion of into Israel, and it was horrific. There was so far at least 7.
I feel the only thing I can think about is how awful he looks right here, because for context, this was on a Monday after October 7th, and then on Friday they had their members drive, which basically like a telethon. I don't know, like it was like 8 hours long, and he got absolutely wasted. It was hilarious, and shaved his head, but he looked like absolute death for days afterwards.
700 Israelis died, which is nuts. One of the crazy things was there was a nature party, a peace party, they actually call it, ironically. And I guarantee a lot of people there were pro peace.
This was an incredibly hard watch for me simply because about 0% of this coverage was actually productive by any means, and it only sowed more division into the left, something we are already notorious for.
Ethan, you're being intentionally choose. Shut the fuck up.
People are saying Israel does that on the daily. The IDF
I don't.
does that on the
That's
daily.
not what I'm talking about. See, that's what you're doing. You're excusing people being burned alive and kids being murdered. You're saying Israel does that on the daily. Okay. Now I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that. So are you? So are you in favor of an Iraqi terrorist cell coming to kill everyone in your neighborhood?
A big point of contention that Ethan continued bringing up was that people immediately coming out and saying free Palestine after the initial attacks by Hamas was absolutely disgusting and was in support of terrorism.
The thing that I've been seeing online that makes me fucking sick.
So, like, obviously not everybody meant that, but there was an absolutely unhinged response from the left to October 7th. In, like, you go to, like, a leftist streamer chat during that time, and it was just, like, spammed with W Hamas. I don't even remember all the things that I remember seeing, but, like, there absolutely was glorification of Hamas and of the actions that they did on October 7th. And there's absolutely, I hate talking about this because I feel like there's like a million different disclaimers that you have to make every time. Like, obviously there's a conversation to be had about, you know, Israel creating Hamas and them feeling like they have no other option and all this, but like there's also like a realistic conversation that needs to be had about Hamas and what they are and like what their goals are and what they did. And if we're going to be against war crimes, they committed war crimes on October 7th. I just feel like we can have conversations about that without diminishing the plight of the Palestinian people.
Dick, is that just like brazen, enthusiastic support for Hamas. Like this, so there was, even before Israeli responded at all, like the first 12 hours was just wanton massacre of civilians, kidnapping, desecrating of bodies, just absolute terrible, unjustifiable violence and terrorism. And immediately I see so many leftists being like, I stand with Palestine, which I do stand with Palestine, right? But if there's not unprovoked, but if there's a terrorist attack where 700 people are killed and your immediate response is, I stand with Palestine, how am I supposed to interpret that other than I stand with Hamas?
From a lot of people's perspective, mine included, we had no idea about the terror attack on the music festival when the original story broke out. The first news I heard about Palestine was simply that Palestinians had bulldozed the fences of Gaza and escaped the confines. Obviously, this is fantastic news, and in support of them, I and many others were quick to say free Palestine. Yet Ethan, for whatever reason, thinks that everyone heard about this music festival attack and were very quick to be happy about it. The fact that civilians died is not what people were happy about.
So, yeah, I mean, this was 2 days, him talking was 2 days after October 7th. Everybody knew what had happened. And so, like, obviously, I believe this guy had no intention of glorifying Hamas or anything like that, and plenty of people didn't. But there absolutely were a lot of people who did do that, and I think that is worth calling out.
Basically, for this entire episode, his anger was directed at people in chat whom he didn't quite understand their perspective. And when anyone in chat tried correcting him or simply just educating...
Yeah, and the argument with chat, I think, was utterly unproductive, and it just should not have happened at all. Like, he should not have done that.
Him and telling him to keep a more open mind. He would simply yell at them, call them names, and overall just shut down any potential for conversation.
I don't need to talk about Israel horrible things. I've done that. I talk about the horrible things Israel's done. I've done that. I do that. So if you think Hamas is dope, just remember that you, even more than Israelis perhaps, deserve to be burned alive by terrorists and your whole family murdered in front of you. So there you go.
But ultimately, the events had just unfolded. So I completely understand his biases in that moment and the immense emotion he must have been feeling. However, after a few days had passed following the initial attacks, especially after weeks have passed, I'd assume your takes on the matter would shift at least slightly to the proper conclusion. On the following episode of the H3 podcast, he spent much of the time calling out people from Twitter that he had been arguing with. Once again, very unproductive. He even went...
Yeah, this I don't think he should have done at all. I don't think he should have engaged with Frogan at all. I think that was unproductive, and also I don't know if she got a lot of hate for that, but like gave a lot of exposure to someone who does not have that big of a following. I just don't think that was right on his part.
Went out of his way to go on an insult brigade onto someone in his social circle. Frogan, a former Hassan moderator and a good friend of Lena and AB, was unfollowed by Ethan due to some of the tweets she was writing immediately after the initial...
And to be fair, some of the stuff Frogan was tweeting and saying on live was unhinged and fully deserved to be called out. But I don't think that was really Ethan's place, and I don't think that he should have... I don't think Frogan made it public. What she said was like in a Discord, and that was leaked, and I don't think Ethan should have responded to that.
Had occurred.
Is that this girl Frogan, who, here, let me see.
Frogan.
Oh, Frogan? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. I don't even know how to say her name. I just followed her because, there was a lot of mutuals that were following her, and she seemed like a nice person, so that's why I followed her. Some people I'm seeing are just really leaving their humanity at the door when it comes to what's happening. I just quietly unfollowed her, okay? I didn't like the tweets she was making. I thought they were like leaning too much towards pro-Hamas, and I just didn't like it. I didn't want to see it. And so I fucking quietly unfollowed her. I didn't make a big deal. I didn't say anything. But like, she got to turn it into this whole big thing that turns into a drama that's now being posted all over the internet.
I didn't turn it into a big thing, though. I was just talking about it amongst the I shouldn't have said it in a Discord server. I'll admit that. I got sad. I was like, damn, like, this is one of my favorite content creators, and I got unfollowed.
That face when one of your favorite content creators unfollows you for being pro-Palestine. Like, first of all, the framing of that is fucked up, okay? Let's not even go there. Second of all, thank you for saying I'm your favorite content creator. I mean, that's flattering. We appreciate all the audience members, and I'm flattered by that. But saying you don't even know why I unfollowed you. You don't know. You don't have no information. We've never even talked.
The thing is, I assumed why you unfollowed me, because the only thing I've been tweeting about the last fucking week has been Palestine. The only thing I've been tweeting about the last fucking week has been Palestine. I don't think my Big Time Rush tweets will make him unfollow me. Okay? I don't think it was the Big Time Rush tweets. What else would it be?
So I guess this from her Discord got leaked. She said, Ethan Klein unfollowed Frogan. This is from our subreddit, I think. Ethan Prob was like, this damn Arab supports Hamas. That's not funny. That's not funny at all.
But you think I do support Hamas, so it was true. You literally think I do support Hamas, so it was true. But I made a joke about it. He literally kept saying I support Hamas. So, I mean, this is before I knew he thought I supported Hamas, but I was like, I'm just assuming that he was probably like, oh, damn, this bitch supports Hamas. So I made a joke about him assuming, I made a joke about him assuming that I supported Hamas.
Like, the whole framing of this is really fucking cruel. Ethan, I'll support the IDF. Refollow me. I don't support the IDF either. It's not funny. So,
Yeah, like this whole thing was just a clusterfuck. Like, he should not have talked about Frogan at all.
that's the framing of it. And then the reason I unfollowed her, because apparently she wants to know, is because of this tweet specifically and a few others. But this is the one that I was like, I don't want to see this anymore. She said, leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America. But as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. Now, this, to me, I'm interpreting this as, let me read what I wrote. I don't want to say anything out of pocket, but I don't fucking like that. People are talking about me unfollowing Frogan, so I'll explain why. Since she wants to talk about murdering children and burning families alive in their safe houses is not a revolution, it's a massacre. And if you think that's what revolution is supposed to look like, I'm terrified for your idea of an American revolution.
I mean, I think that is valid.
Okay? She goes, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. She's implying that what Hamas is doing is right. I mean, she's basically all but saying it. She's saying, as soon as a revolution happens in the Middle East, then all of a sudden what they're doing is wrong. She's saying, in her opinion, that what they're doing is right because it's a revolution.
I don't want violence on any side. Like, I don't think rape, I don't think murder is, like, of civilians it shouldn't be a thing. I've said that. Like, I spoke against it. I don't understand why I have to, like, fucking end every fucking tweet of me talking about what's going on in Palestine. Oh, I don't support Hamas. I don't do this. How?
But like when you say things that are very clearly insinuating that you do, you kind of do have to put that disclaimer. And I get that it's annoying because you kind of have to put disclaimers all over the place anytime you talk about anything to do with Israel Palestine. But that's just is what it is because it's a complicated issue, whether you like it or not. You can't just get all of the nuance and context into your full position on Israel Palestine into one tweet, and that's fair. But also, like, don't be surprised when people maybe take it a different way than you intended.
How come people that are pro-Israel don't have to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I don't support the genocide of Palestinians. Why do I have to keep reiterating my stance on Hamas to take away from what's going on in Palestine right now? Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, I don't support Hamas. By the way, it's going to take away from the whole fucking movement. How?
I don't think yeah, like I don't think you need to be like forcing people to like constantly condemn Hamas, but like the conversation does need to be had. Like it doesn't mean that you just ignore Hamas either. Like you have to have a realistic conversation of what Hamas is, because they are a part of Palestinian liberation as well. If Israel was, if Palestine was free from Israel, they would not be free from Hamas. Hamas is an oppressive institution.
How hard is it to get through your fucking head? And I've literally, clearly he unfollowed me, so he didn't see the other tweets. I talked about it in other tweets. I retweeted other tweets too. Okay?
And this is what a majority of the discussion was about during this episode.
So again, she has not a single fucking atom of empathy. Not a single shred for the...
Yeah, so like he went way too hard on this. He went way too long on this. Like I think it's similar to a lot of the criticism I have for people who are criticizing or attacking really Ethan. Like it just you can just say that like these seem to be bad takes. Like you don't know the full context of her positions. You don't know her. You don't know her positions. You're just going off of tweets, and it's enough to say, hey, this tweet is kind of weird and rubs me the wrong way, and that's why I unfollowed you, and that's fine. Yeah, like looking back on these videos gives a little bit of a different perspective than I had during them, I guess.
The mass murder of children. She doesn't even want to hear it. In fact, her selective outrage.
But yeah, I mean, there is selective outrage among the left. And I think when you are so Marxist pilled, where you can only see things through the lens of oppressor, oppressee, and like anything that the oppressee does to get out from under their oppressor is fair game. And you can't see any other nuance or any other kind of analysis outside of that or any other perspective, really. And that is an issue on the left that I think deserves to be called out. And I think that Ethan was however poorly or tone deaf, I think that he was a tempering voice for the left, because there really isn't that available aside from just like fucking conservatives. But obviously, like, they're not going to help provide like any kind of additional nuance or perspective on anything. Yeah.
It's stunning. She says, I've only ever heard you talk about me supporting Palestine. Are you fucking dumb? Like, how dare you even say that, you scumbag? Did you think about this before you wrote it? Shame on you. How dare you defend what you said? And to even come for me as if I don't support Palestinians. Sorry. This statement just proved my point. This is the last time I ever spoke on Israel.
125 weeks ago. That's the whole fucking point. 125 weeks ago.
The Israeli government holds all of the power, and it's on them to stop the violence and show true willingness to peace. That's the last time I talked about fucking Israel. So
yeah, 125 weeks ago, which is my fucking point.
Do you want to keep saying this shit about me? Or do you want to apologize? Because it sounds to me like you want to double down. Actually, you definitely did double down. You said Hamas was murdering their prison guards. Fucking kids, you fucking psycho. They're murdering children with a fucking machine gun, dude. That's the prison guard you're talking about?
Bad faith.
Wait, and then you can't possibly understand why Israelis who are dead wrong are being like, oh, we need to retaliate. They're dead wrong. But you don't understand why they would think that. Again, because I have to emphasize, because people don't fucking listen to what I say. I mean, I said it so many times, and yet she still acts like I haven't said it. It's astonishing, frankly. It's astonishing.
You said it 2.5 years ago. That was my point. You haven't said anything in recent times. I'm expected to be talking about it constantly, saying I denounce Hamas every fucking sentence I say when I talk about Palestine. But you talk about it 2.5 years ago, and suddenly you're good? You're good for the rest of times? Okay.
Keep in mind, Frogan grew up in Lebanon, but her and her family were forced to leave because of IDF's actions in the region.
I'm Lebanese too. I understand the situation. I don't think you realize that, chat. This is the first political situation I've ever become aware of. This was my childhood. Okay? This was my childhood. My family had to leave Lebanon because of the IDF.
Finally, leftovers happened, where it was time for Hassan to at least teach Ethan a little bit about the topic and at least guide.
This episode was so triggering for me because I felt like I had watched a different episode, a different show than everybody else watched. It seemed like everyone's takeaway from that was that Hassan was infinitely patient and like babied Ethan and just like tried to show compassion to him and was such a good friend to him and was like trying to educate him, and Ethan was just insanely bad faith. I kept seeing that, insanely bad faith, and like I saw people like nobody let Ethan or Hassan get a word in edgewise. From what I remember, and I watched it several times just to make sure I wasn't like bugging or losing my mind. The ratio of Hassan like talking over Ela or Ethan was way higher than them interrupting Hassan. What I saw was Ethan coming in as a friend, trying to find middle ground, trying to conceding many points and trying to see Hassan's perspective and the perspective of other people and showing sympathy across the board. What I saw from Hassan was somebody coming in not as a friend, but as a debater, as a political pundit, not as a friend, who was bad faith, who showed selective empathy, who did not concede any points. Like Ethan was like just trying to get anything from him, like anything, any point of like common ground, and there was just nothing there. And by the end of it, Hassan would just shut down and did not want to talk anymore or engage anymore. Yeah, like if I had a friend that had treated me the way Hassan treated Ethan during that episode, we would not be friends anymore. We would not be friends anymore. Yeah, and so I just feel like, and there's another reason why I stopped talking about this whole issue is because I just feel like I am watching two different versions of something unfold, and I just like it's impossible to have a conversation with people who have different versions of reality in their head.
Hide his anger.
Like, how dare you even say that, you scumbag?
To the proper individuals.
People don't know what your perspective is and immediately say, okay, you want all Palestinians to die. You want Israel to ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip and ethnically displace in the West Bank. I don't believe that that's your perspective, and
you don't
I've never.
Believe it? It's not.
No, I know that that's not your perspective. I'm
Just
saying
to be
that
totally
like,
clear about that.
yes, but I think that it's important for you to clarify, and then I can clarify my position as well, because a lot of people, despite the fact that I know that I have to be on a very delicate tightrope when discussing these matters, because it does often get racialized fairly quickly, and it's done as a deliberate attempt.
Hassan's chat during this time was disturbingly racist. Disturbingly racist. There's just no way around that. It just was.
To try to misconstrue your position and debate a straw man, I think that you can, describe your position, then we can go forward.
This Leftovers was a total mess, and I had a really hard time watching it. Ethan cried. Hassan cried, which I have never seen before. And through all the frustration, as Ethan and Ela were stepping on Hassan and hardly letting him speak at times.
Over the course of the past multiple decades, since 2000 onward, before the October 7 operation, that the casualties were, of course, asymmetrical. Rocket fire still ended up killing people in Israel proper.
Again, it's like, but you can look at the numbers, but like, of course, because Israel has it's still the provocation. It's still.
So again, this is an instance of, but like there was back and forth interrupting each other, and to my knowledge, the Hassan interrupted both Ela and Ethan a lot more, and I just don't see that mentioned at all. It's like Hassan was just like this meek, like saint that was just there to educate and was just treated so poorly. It was just not the case.
Still the attempt, You know what I mean? Just because they have the technology to shoot it out of the sky doesn't mean that the people in Israel are not going to be
This episode was a shit show, though.
affected by it.
No, I understand that, but there's
Also, I want to say,
there's something different, though.
I need to make something clear
What's
that
up?
you touched on.
After they were spouting countless Israeli propaganda talking points, stating them as if they were fact.
Kids that survived because they were laying under their dead parents' bodies, and they laid there for hours, the whole day, and that's how they survived. And the last time we heard stories like that was at the Holocaust.
In the end, Ethan and Hila finally...
I think using any kind of like anecdotes like that is in an argument is unproductive. Because there's so many stories that we just don't have like verification on, and at the end of the day, like it doesn't make the reality of what's happening any more or less horrific. And I just don't think that there's a need to bring in stories that may or may not be made up or stuff like that to evoke an emotional response.
Acknowledged that their perspective is quite biased and that they should be more open to the frustrations and emotions and voices of Palestinians. This was honestly a great thing to hear. However, I'm not alone in this frustration by any means. These comments are from the H3H3_productions subreddit, which is different from the main subreddit.
So I'm banned from this subreddit. I got banned during this whole fiasco. This subreddit is unhinged. I don't know. It is an unhinged subreddit, and the things that were said in there were kind of mind-boggling, honestly. That is where I had most of the conversations of people who were calling Ethan a genocidal maniac and a Zionist pig, and like making weird conspiracy theories about Hila's time in the IDF, and like spending an enormous amount of energy doing like investigations into her past, and like analyzing old photos, and like speculating on like what rank she was in the military. It was just like so much energy put into that for what? Like, how is that productive? And the question I kept asking in that group was, if Ethan is what you say he is, if he is not someone who just is having bad takes on this and is tone deaf and is not really, listening to other perspective as much as he should. If you don't believe that's the case, but rather that he is actually genocidal and he is a Zionist, if that's what you believe, then why is Hassan still defending him? Why is he saying that he's not those things? Is he dumb? Is he fake? He doesn't really support Palestine? Is he lying to you? Like, why would he still be supporting Ethan, being friends with Ethan, and defending him? Why? And I never got a good answer on that until yesterday. I made a video on his recent comments about Aaron Bushnell, and somebody started arguing with me about Ethan bringing up things that are not factual. And again, I asked same question, and they didn't answer a couple times, and I kind of like pressured them to answer it, and finally they said, yeah, Hassan is a moron if he doesn't know what Ethan is by now. And then another person said that he is pretending to be friends with Ethan, and just like watching what he says and like being careful so that he can have an in with him to bring more people over to leftism, which is a really soft and fancy way of saying that he faked being friends with Ethan and lied about his position on Palestine for clout. to get more audience members. That's what they think. And it is just utterly detached from any sort of reality or logic. To this day, why does Hassan keep defending Ethan and is still friends with him? Why? Like, either Ethan is what you say he is, and Hassan is a lying snake or an idiot. Either way, you probably shouldn't be following or supporting him anymore, because all these people who have this take are all, pretty much everyone are like strong Hassan supporters and watch him every day. So like that's the only way I could think to like bring some sort of logic and like connect the dots for them. Like why would, if you keep saying this, why would you still be a Hassan supporter?
It's where people go after they have been banned from the main subreddit, where banning is all too common. I think Ethan should stop covering the Israel-Palestine war. He's obviously very biased and not qualified to cover the topic. I found myself angry last night watching See You Next Tuesday, and I don't think it's doing him any good to cover this. He's not letting anyone express their opinions, and mods are banning anyone that criticizes him. It's not his stance on this that's the issue to me. It's the fact that he's pulling up random tweets, isn't fact-checking anything, and using ChatGPT to just push his narrative. It's very important to listen to every perspective, but not when it's misinformed. He's not doing a good job, because when you have a massive audience like this, you can't cover stuff like this and only use the tweets that go your way to try and prove your point. Only thing I cringed at was that last Israel segment talk. I love Ethan, but geez, is he making himself look bad when he's talking about it. First pod I was on his side too, being respectful, but lately he seems to just be ignoring what's going on with Israel's actions. Is low-key like when the whole BLM movement was going on and people were saying all lives matter.
That's not a analogous perspective. Yeah, I mean it's not. Yeah, I mean it's not like calling out people for glorifying what Hamas did is not doing all lives matter. Talking about the reality of what Hamas is not doing all lives matter.
When someone said Black Lives Matter. Like, yes, all lives do matter, but at the moment, Black lives were the ones being taken away. This time is with Israel and Palestine. Yes, all innocent people matter, but we have one side recording TikToks and making stuff for the army, and on the other side, we have whole-ass families not knowing where their next meal will come from. No home, no life, no nothing. It's so incredibly weird how he doesn't see that. And even still to this day, after 2 weeks since the initial attacks on Israel, Ethan still seems to be running defense for Israel. Whether it's trying to prove that an Israeli tweet is real for 30 minutes.
And then next to it is a coloring book, also covered in blood, except there's splatters of pink on the paper. And so the fine people of
yeah, there's no reason to do this, I don't think.
Twitter, who are now all forensic blood splatter experts, have all agreed that this photo is fake. The blood on the book is pink. Blood when it's wet is red, and it turns into a darker color when it dries. Okay, thank you to the forensic expert, Lin. Basic facts. So why is it pink? This tweet had like 100.
Again, like getting bogged down in these like specific anecdotes is just really unproductive, because it's like, what are we talking about? It doesn't change the material facts of what's going on. You know, yeah, I mean, Israelis were unalived, and that's like specific anecdotes don't make that worse or better or anything like that. There's just no reason to get bogged down in like quibbling over these things like this.
100,000 likes, like 10 million views. And if you look into this, it's all over the place of people co-signing this, liking it. So what's happening here? They're looking at the scene of a child who was butchered by Hamas, and they're saying that it's fake. They're saying not only is it fake, but Israel is lying to us about people dying. Like they're
Yeah, I think it like I mean on both sides, like there's just so much conspiratorial thinking, and it's just not good to get bogged down in that.
there is right before our eyes on a much smaller scale this historical revisionism, you know, uh, it's in the same vein as Holocaust denialism.
Or completely jumping to deny that the missile that hit the Al-Ahli hospital was from Israel, even though that hospital was bombed
I don't think he did that.
just a couple hours before, and every other piece of evidence points to the fact that this missile was from Israel.
We know now that it almost certainly was not from Israel.
I hope that wasn't Israel, because I mean, piling on these insanely evil attacks, like that one is just too much to stomach. Like blowing up a goddamn hospital. It was the IDF, Ethan. It literally just broke. I don't care who's talking about it. It just happened. I don't think anybody knows what happened exactly yet.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's any reason to say that it was Israel when nobody knows. Nobody knew at the time. And I think Hassan's coverage of it was incredibly irresponsible. And I think anybody who did make a conclusion was irresponsible. And, I think obviously, yeah, I mean, of course, you can probably assume it was Israel at the time. But also, I don't think it was wrong to say, hey, let's wait and see. Like, you just don't lose anything by waiting the couple of hours or the next day to get more information. And I think that is generally the responsible thing to do. I don't think that there was like any denialism here from Ethan.
Now, everyone's going to suspect it was the IDF. Hassan says it was the IDF. Well, he can say whatever he wants. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah, the fucking JDAM expert.
The IDF video is old. It shows buildings with electricity and the power's out. Dude, you guys got to stop with these weird conspiracy theory stuff. Just wait like a few hours. That's it. That's all I ask.
In the end, our true enemies in this conflict and in this struggle are not these misinformed liberals online. They're not these misinformed celebrities that are simply posting to save face and show that they care about some cause. But I do think it's important to at least call this out when I see it, because now more than ever, it is evident that these people do hold some power to sway public opinion. And simply by standing with Israel, you are doing nothing but harming the people of Palestine and all people of the Muslim world, all people in the global south, all people that are victims of imperialism, capitalism at its highest degree. But at the end of the day, our true enemies in this struggle are the folks in power, the folks in true power. So if you haven't already, please let your voice be heard. Protests work. I'm telling you this. I've been participating in several protests around my area in Minneapolis.
No, you don't expect it in the United States of America, but there you have it. St. Paul, Minnesota. You're looking at people acting, they're responsible.
Wasn't it the same fucking guy that was like talking about how the Trump shoes were gonna win black votes for him?
Responding to Hamas. They called for protests around the world. You're seeing them. This is very revealing and troubling.
The propaganda works. I mean, in St. Paul, Minnesota, who would have thunk it? But I think we have about 80,000 Somalis living in St. Paul now, more than that now. And that's what they think about that hospital bombing.
And just in the past week, public opinion has swayed, where the majority of...
So yeah, I think like all this to say, and what he's saying is correct. Like Ethan is not our enemy when it comes to Palestinian liberation. Sleepy Custodian, pro-Palestine or Israel? I am pro-Palestine. I am sympathetic of Israel, but I think its government as it is right now needs to be absolutely deconstructed.
Of people in America, Republicans and Democrats, are not in support of the money we are sending to Israel.
But yeah, like not to say that like when we say that like people like Ethan aren't the enemy, that's not to deflect and say you can't say anything about Ethan's remarks or anything like that. Like but putting so much energy into hating him is just utterly unproductive.
That is going to bomb innocent civilians in Gaza. Protests work. Let your voice be heard. If you're in the Minneapolis area, I urge you to follow and stay up to date with Anti-War Minnesota. But if you're not here, please find protests in your area. They are all over, trust me. Every day, every other day, there is action being done in your area. You just have to find it. So please, if you care about peace and the freedom that you experience here in America, something that more than 50% of the world will never experience, please do your part and get out on the streets as much as you can. If you can't do that, you can contact your representatives, you can email them, you can call them, you can contact your governor, because I know every governor is sending a large amount of the state's funds to Israel and these weapons contractors. That's just a fact. Tell them how you feel. Tell them that you don't want innocent people to experience, once again, a genocide. That these people deserve basic human dignity. And if we all do this, I know things will change. Thank you for watching this video. Please do your part, and peace and love.
All right, so I know I was a little heated during that, I guess. I don't know if I'd call that heated, but I really appreciate this guy's North Star Radio's perspective and his criticism. That's all I've ever asked for with regards to Ethan, is like we have to be able to offer constructive criticism without resorting to extreme rhetoric and dehumanizing and racism. Like we have to be able to allow for a diversity of thought and differing perspectives, and people like Ethan need to be able to do that as well. And I think he did not do a great job of that during his Israel-Palestine arc. And I think for the time being, it is probably best if he just doesn't talk about it anymore. Again, North Star Radio, I was told that this would be a good, well-articulated criticism of Ethan, and it certainly was. And while I may not necessarily agree with everything he said or like the framing of everything, I feel like I offered my constructive criticism. He offered his constructive criticism, and we're both all on the same team. We both all have the same goals, and I think we can all help each other do better when it comes to discourse, do better when it comes to disagreeing or agreeing. And yeah, I think that was a textbook excellent way to call somebody out.